Viewers, when the Trump administration unveiled a radical plan to slap a 50% tariff on India's exports, it was hard not to feel glum. Prospects were not looking bright for diamond cutting units of Surat, textile factories of Tirupur, and fish processing plants of Kochi. The value of exports to the United States, a prime market for India, went down 37.5% in a span of just 4 months, from $8.8 billion in May 2025 to $5.5 billion in September. The progress of exports of the last several years had in a way been reversed. But viewers, something unexpected has happened. It appears that for India, the US is not anymore the only game in town. Modi government has been thinking on its feet and planning a counter-tariff strategy that has begun to show results. Yes, viewers, so much so that even the IMF has sat up and noticed. The IMF, in fact, has upped India's growth prospects in its WEO for 2025. It says India is going to grow at 6.6% in FY26, up from 6.5% in FY25. Trump thought that India's leadership would crawl to him and surrender. His aides have said as much. Didn't he say that India was a dead economy and that it would come to its senses sooner than later? Wasn't this lapped up by our own leaders? But the Modi government clearly had other ideas, viewers. Different ones. We said we're not going to be dealing with the United States with a gun to our heads. Listen to this, viewers.
We are talking to the United States, of course, but we don't do deals in a hurry, and we don't do deals with deadlines or with a gun on our head. India looks long term. India never takes decisions in a rush or on the pressure of the moment. And we've accepted if there's a tariff on us, there is a tariff on us. We're looking how to overcome that. We're looking at newer markets. We're looking at a stronger demand impetus within the Indian economy. So we have a very resilient structure.
We're looking at newer markets. Well, viewers, the good news is that India has diversified its trade. And how? We found new markets, proving that our manufacturing is world-class and our products are competitive globally, which is why we've been able to guardrail sectors that were thought to be most exposed to US sanctions. In fact, the UNCTAD says India is only the second least exposed economy to US tariff tyranny, globally, viewers, after Japan. And all of this has happened because, viewers, we have found new places to sell. We've diversified away from the United States. The figures are telling you the story. Exports are up 6.7% year on year. Share of exports in non-US markets are up 10.9% year on year. Export growth of 9% in Q2 of FY26 versus 7% decline in Q2 of FY25. Viewers, we've tapped new markets, Spain, UAE, China and Bangladesh among 24 countries. CRISIL says that non-US exports are up 10.9% YOY. UNCTAD says that at 34.4, India is second least exposed to US tariffs after Japan. Elara Capital says rice shipments have grown 33.2% to $924.8 million. Export of electronics has gone up 50.5% year on year. Seafood product exports have increased by 23.4% to $781 million. Shipped cotton exports have increased by over 33%. Exports of gems and jewelry rose by 0.4% year on year in September. Of course, viewers, it is unwise to toot one's own horn. It is unwise to think that we are out of the woods, but certain things are now becoming clear and apparent. With India creating elbow room at the negotiation table, Trump is fast losing leverage over India. India has a major trade deal on the cards with the EU, which potentially gives our goods access to a very, very rich market. India can now stall on US expectations. It need not cede its strategic trade autonomy or sovereignty. Modi has for now, some would argue, trumped both Donald and doubters. Many will caution against overconfidence, and they're right. On this show, we will also ask viewers, what are the unaccounted X factors that can upset the apple cart as we go forward? Let's open this up, viewers. It's a very interesting conversation. Let's have one in the spirit of transparency and, most importantly, viewers, of critical assessment. And I want to begin with Mr. Rajiv Desai. He's a businessman. He's been an advisor to the UPA government. He's an author. He wears many caps, hats, call it what you want. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Desai, look, it was looking problematic when Trump announced all those tariffs, but you'd have to give the government, and I've just put out the figures, government for actually preempting, diversifying, and it's been done so quickly. Would you agree?
Oh, well, I don't have the data, so I cannot agree or disagree. But I'll tell you this, it's not a joke, to take on, never mind Donald Trump or anything, it's not a joke to take on the entire United States government because of the influence they wield over so many markets in so many places, including within India. So I think the wise thing to do, which is what you're saying, that you should stop tooting your horn and take a look at how successful this diversification is. I haven't heard anything about how the diversification has worked so far. All I know is that there have been a lot of full stops from people I know in the US who do business with India, that people are hesitant anymore to do deals or to look at prospects in India. So that needs to be dealt with rather than be sort of complacent and say we've done it and all of that. I think you need to take a sort of deeper look at this and say, how do we, sort of allay the fears of India being branded by this as a sort of an unfair trader or an unreliable partner.
Okay, so let me bring in Mr. Bagga. He's a market expert, specializes in the commodities sector, etc. Mr. Bagga, these figures suggest that India has found alternatives. I'm not saying that, we've completely replaced the United States. So I'm not dealing in hyperbole. But certainly, we've been able to demonstrate that our goods and services are very marketable in other economies. And the government seems to have largely, and UNCTAD has come out with the facts and says that we are only the second least exposed now to US sanctions. That's not bad going for a country that was written off by many internally also.
Yeah, Rahul, three very big points stand out. When in the Trump administration one, when they levied the tariffs on China, Global Times carried out front page articles for 3 months, rolling out 35 sectors in which they were heavily reliant on the US trade. And China went after it hammer and tongs for the next 7 years, so much so that you saw how Xi Jinping stood up to Trump yesterday. And the way China has been able to take on its biggest trade partner. I think India has a lot of lessons. I would totally agree that we don't need to make too much noise, and that's what the government has done. It's been back channel talks. We have been very polite, very gracious in public, and we have kept up the relations. It's the biggest consumer market. It's the biggest military in the world, and it's a Western democratic values ethos that the US represents. We are all for it. But we don't also want to be pushovers. I think that message has to go very clearly. Second, if you look at the numbers, up to September, the numbers are out. We have lost some market share in the US, so our exports to the US have gone down, but our overall exports went up. What does it
How did
show?
that happen?
New markets. We have gone to new geographies. The same exports have got directed to other markets. Secondly, I think a lot of transshipment is happening. If you look at our textile majors, for example, Rahul, 4.5 crore people work in textiles in India. We have a natural advantage, both labor cost as well as being a huge cotton growing nation. We have a lot of natural advantages in textiles. A lot of our big textile companies now have bases in Guatemala, in Dubai, in London, and goods are being shipped from there. So I think transshipment as well as directing the goods through to other markets. If you look at China, for example, and this is a global move. So Trump has done a big favor to the world because it's a huge wake-up call. I would say our policy should be not more than 15% of our exports at any time should be exposed to the US. So I agree with Mr. Desai that you have to be careful. Less noise, I think that's what the government has done. And if you look at China, their US exports have plummeted, but their overall exports are up. Their exports to Africa are up 50%. It's not that Africans have started consuming Chinese goods more, it's transshipment which is happening. So Chinese goods or Chinese factories making stuff in Africa and shipping to the US. If you look at Korea and Japan, which are still very high tech, their exports to the US went down, but their overall exports have gone up. So the world is learning, Rahul, how to tackle this. And Trump has really done a big benefit to the entire world, and especially for India. For us, it's a wake-up call. Don't be more than 15% exposed to the US at any time.
But to take advantage, of course, you need to have a huge amount of, I suppose, at one level, acumen, tactical acumen, Dr. Ranganathan, foresight, and of course, a determination to not see this as a limitation but as an opportunity, which, would you agree? I'm asking you an open question. Would you agree that the Modi government seems to have got its ducks in a row?
Yes, Rahul, absolutely and emphatically on two counts. Number one, I think we realized very early that as the adage goes, what cannot be cured must be endured. So Mr. Modi has realized that Trump cannot be cured, he has to be endured. What do we do then? Do we succumb to a bully? And the answer is a little bit more nuanced. We haven't succumbed to the bully at all. If you look at before the sanctioning of the two Russian oil majors, we were actually buying almost 40% of our oil imports from Russia. And this was despite 2 months having gone by when Trump said, do not buy any Russian oil. In fact, we were buying more Russian oil in September. Now, ironically, when Trump has put sanctions on the Russian oil companies, you saw from that clip, in fact, if you were to play the extended clip of the brilliant Mr. Piyush, you would realize that he exposed ruthlessly hypocrisy of the Western leaders. I think the UK trade minister was sitting next to him. And even though the sanctions have been slapped on the two Russian oil majors, Germany and UK have got exemptions from Trump. So look at the hypocrisy. Trump slapped us 25% extra tariffs on account of us buying Russian oil when EU was buying more Russian oil and energy than us. China was buying. Trump did not slap on them. And B, now that he's slapped sanctions on two Russian oil majors, Germany and UK will continue to buy refined oil from their local subsidiaries, violating basically exposing the hypocrisy. Number one. Number two, the data tells you that 9.5% of our total exports, yearly exports, were affected by the Trump tariffs. Now, what do we do about it? We have gone about it brilliantly. We have diversified. If you were to look beyond diversification, you look at also not just we're doing in the immediate aftermath, we are prepared for the next year or couple of years. In the last 1.5 months alone, 4 India, other countries, other bloc treaties have kicked in. including Switzerland EFTA, including the UK one that's going to kick in now, including with Oman, and one with Australia is in the offing, that augurs well for our diversification basket. So yes, you're absolutely right. The way this government has managed, absolutely hats off to them.
Okay. Dr. Raman, Trump now is praising Modi. Last few days, Trump has changed his tone, his tune, suggesting that he realizes that India has insulated itself. Dr. Ranganathan, Mr. Bagga, and the headlines of various newspapers are proclaiming this, and therefore is not exposed to the US, so threats perhaps won't work. And this whole business of dead economy, it's dead wrong, really, isn't it?
Dead economy is dead wrong, but Rahul, I think that there is no two opinions that we need a deal. Most of the world has made a deal. We too need to make a deal. There are multiple sectors that are hurting, and we cannot get carried away by 1 month's data. And that also partly, one of the reasons for the export staying in positive territory could be the depreciation of the rupee. The rupee, according to the Engineering Export Promotion Council of India, depreciated nearly 5% in September compared to September 24. So I think that you have to keep this whole thing in a proper perspective and not get carried away. So 9% fall, particularly some sectors. I come from the state of Tamil Nadu, where Tirupur is hurting badly. Thousands of workers have been asked to go back home, and factories have been shut. Likewise, automobile sector again is one sector that has been hit. So I think that we cannot just look at 1 month's data, and that also the very first month. It's not a sustained period of time to sort of jump the gun and say that we've beaten the US tariffs and our economy does not need a deal. We need a deal. Most of the world is not stupid.
Okay.
I mean, to say that we are the only, yes, I agree, we cannot kowtow or bow to Trump on whatever he says. But at some point, we will need to make a deal. The whole world, and the rumor is even the Chinese are very close to a deal. I mean, perhaps it didn't happen yesterday, but it's pretty close to a deal. And if that happens, then we'll be the only major economy which is sort of in limbo.
Okay, Dr. Ranganathan wants to come in on this point. Yes.
I think Dr. Raman is right, but can I just also throw in a caveat, couple of caveats, in fact. Number one, I think we've realized quite nicely, realistically, that we are not China yet. Look, when Trump also slapped tariffs equaling 150% on China, China reciprocated. And Trump, brought those tariffs down. Even though we were unfairly treated by Trump on account of the oil tariffs, we did not reciprocate because we realized we're simply not in a situation. So yes, Dr. Raman is right. We realize more than any other country that we need to keep on trading with America. But I also want to get this, maybe extract this from Dr. Raman, that Dr. Raman, all said and done, our self-respect is also something. When you know that America and Trump have unfairly slapped us with those oil tariffs, how long and how much should we go and negotiate or keep on negotiating that will go against our self-respect is what I want from you.
My quick point. Look, there are two ways of looking at this. One, what about the rest of the world? What about the European Union? What about most other countries? What about Japan? What about Korea? All of them were slapped with tariffs. All of them. Not all of those tariffs were fair. Not all of those tariffs were just. But they still went ahead and did a deal.
Okay,
now,
so let me ask.
The opposition stood with them.
One second. No, forget all that. I just want to bring in Mr. Bagga.
With the government.
Just forget that. One second. It's an important point that Dr. Raman is also making, prompted by Dr. Ranganathan. I think we've narrowed it down, and I want to quickly bring in Mr. Bagga's expertise on this. Mr. Bagga, were those deals that have been struck with some of the other Asian so-called tigers, were they intrinsically fair deals? And when we say we need a deal, do we need it urgently? Can you give us a side idea? I have about 1 minute, that's all. Yeah.
Okay, Rahul, I'll give you a very basic answer. $40 billion of trade is at risk. Out of that $87 billion, 40 comes under this. 40 is about 1% of our GDP that goes at risk. How much of that will we lose? How much of that will we be able to send elsewhere or domestically consume? With this GST cut, the government has tried to address that as well. So one is that. Second, are the deals fair? No. Australia had a FTA with US of 0%. They have been levied a tariff. Korea, which had an FTA running with the US, is paying 19% tariffs for anything it exports and 0% for the US. Same with Japan. The so-called Iron Lady, Shinzo Abe's protege, tells Trump that I'm going to nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize. So the world is going into adulation. I think the Prime Minister has done well by not engaging in public with him because we are not Pakistan. We are not that kind of a country. We represent $1.4 billion. I think Xi Jinping did very well yesterday, but China is in a different. Only thing I'll say, Rahul, 2007, China was $4 trillion. Today they are sitting at 20 trillion.
That is true. We've got to pull our socks up very quickly. Dr. Ranganathan, yes, 10 seconds, I got to wrap up. Yes.
Yes, you please remember that the more you genuflect towards a bully, the more he becomes a bully. Look at Canada. They were going very well with trade, and Trump didn't like a video, and he slapped additional 10% tariffs.
So there is no urgency. There is a need. I think we all recognize that. We can't jeopardize our relationship. I think all of us agree on that point. Viewers, I leave it at this. It's been enlightening.